Getting ready to enter the patient's room. Her name is Megan Petak, date of birth 3/1/1985. Already has a PEG tube inserted, and hi Megan, my name's Trishelle. I'll be your nurse today. Okay. Can you verify your name and date of birth for me?
Megan Petak, March 1st, 1985.
Okay. Thank you very much. How are you feeling today?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Hanging in.
All right. I'm just going to wash my hands here. I'm going to listen for your breath sounds.
Okay.
I'm going to assess your bowel sounds, and then we're going to give you a feeding today.
Okay.
Okay. Any problems with diarrhea?
Only with the last tube feeding that I had.
Okay. Any nausea or vomiting?
No, just upset stomach with it.
Okay. All right. I'll make a note of that in your chart. Okay. If you can just sit up for me. Take a deep breath. Okay. Another breath. One more. And lift this arm for me. All right. I'm going to listen on the back.
Okay.
Deep breath. I'm just going to pull your shirt up, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead. One more. One more. Okay. Then we'll do one over here.
Okay.
All right. Sit back and relax. Everything sounds good. Now we're going to listen for your bowels, okay? Just going to lift your shirt a little bit.
Okay.
You can breathe normally. Okay. No distension, bloating, anything like that. Okay. So I'm just going to check your prescription for the type of feeding. All right. So we have a syringe feeding here. And get everything ready. You have your distilled water. And then, all right. So we're going to remove the plunger, open it up. We have our feeding here. The bottle's intact. The expiration is good. I'm going to shake it up. We're going to label this with your name. Okay. We're going to put your room number. And it's only for enteral use. So that means it's only for your feeding. So that way we don't want somebody to infuse it in your IV on accident. Okay, so we're going to attach our syringe to your feeding tube right here in your PEG tube. We're going to take the feeding and fill the tube. We're going to elevate that no more than 18 inches. Let it flow. Okay. When the feeding gets down to the bottom, we're going to refill it until the amount of feeding that we're supposed to add is instilled. Okay. Then we're going to come back here. We're going to flush it with 50 to 100 milliliters of distilled water. Empty the tube out. Then we're going to recap your tube and you're gonna remain sitting for about an hour, as long as it's tolerated, okay?
Okay.
All right, any questions?
I think we're okay.
Okay. If you had a nasogastric tube, we'd do the same procedure, except instead of inserting it here with the syringe, we'd go through the nasogastric tube. Okay. All right. So if we had a closed system bag, we'd start the same. We'd introduce ourselves, identify the patient, name, date of birth, ask if there's any allergies, wash our hands, assess the breathing, bowel sounds, ask for any nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. This is awkward talking to the thing. So we'd verify the placement, which I forgot to do the first time, but we would aspirate the tube. So before we filled the syringe with the feeding, we would actually draw back and get some of the stomach contents, and then we would check for pH, color, clarity, and then we would discard of that unless it was policy that we would reinsert the aspiration. Then we would flush the syringe and then do the feeding. So if we had a closed system bag, we would go through the same type of setup. We'd aspirate, check the stomach contents, and then on a closed system feeding, it would either be a pre-filled bag or we would have to fill it ourselves. So in this case, we don't have anything in our bag, so we would fill it with this, label it with the patient's name, date of birth, or the date here. You would label it no IV, enteral use only, and you would hang the bag. You would then, if not using an infusion pump, you would use the roller clamp to prime the tubing. Once you got the tubing primed, then you would attach it to the tube. Once it's attached, then you would open up for the flow. After the amount that you are supposed to feed goes through, you would roll the clamp, disconnect the tubing, you would remove the feeding, and flush the tube again. All right. Take a breath. I'm losing my breath. If there's any resistance when instilling the fluid, you would stop, check for kinks. You could rinse the or flush the tubing to see if that's an issue. If the patient's feeling nauseous or feels like they're going to vomit, then you don't force the solution. You can contact the physician. If you need to stop and wait an hour, you can restart it. If there's a resistance to the feeding and you think the dose needs to be lowered, then you would also contact the physician. So now if we go back to an open syringe system for doing meds, first you would check the meds. If you have a liquid form, make sure that it can go through an enteral tube feeding. If you have a tablet form that has to be crushed, you should check with the pharmacy to make sure it can be crushed and diluted into a liquid form to go into the feeding. You would check the dose against the MAR. Again, you would check the patient against the MAR, date of birth, and so on and so forth. You would take the medicine, pour it in your medicine cup, read it at eye level, make sure you have the correct dosage. Then you would take your syringe, reattach it to your tubing. You can flush it. You would put your medicine in the syringe, instill the medicine. Then you would reflush the syringe and have the patient remain in a seated position for 30 minutes as long as it's tolerated. Okay? Mm-hmm. Anything else?
I got it all.
I think that's it. I don't know. Okay. Any questions?
Nope, as long as I tolerate it, we're good.
Okay, so as per policy, we can take our cleansing pad, make sure that the tube is flushed and clean. You can clean around it. We'll redress you. All right, and then I can help you with If you need assistance, I can help you with oral hygiene, anything like that. If you need anything else, I can help you with that. I'm gonna leave you in a comfortable position. So when you're doing feedings, you want somebody in a Fowler's or 30 to 45 degree angle sitting. That way everything's flowing downward. I'm gonna leave you with your call button close to you, okay? Your TV button, your phone, anything else you need today?
I think I'm okay.
Okay, well, you have a good day. I'll take all my garbage.
Thank you.
And have a good day.
You too, thank you.